welcome to the Death of a Dream podcast, where we're all still alive over here, which I feel very blessed to be able to say. COVID-19 is not anything to joke around about. I am just starting to feel a little bit more like myself, and I would say out of a day, say that that's 100. I would say 25% of my day. So yesterday, I would say about 25% of it, I felt like myself mentally, physically, and even on the physical side, it was still just a percentage of that. So it's no joke, peeps. We may be looking at a very different holiday season, or at least I'm hoping that we are. I know that there is not one person that I would wish this on, and I don't even have it probably that bad. It's very weird to not be able to see or not see, to smell or taste anything at all. And I've heard from people that sometimes that's the longest symptom, which blows my mind. Someone told me like 2 months it took them, someone they knew, to get over smell and taste. That's crazy talk. So I'm just giving you that update. I am saying if you haven't started planning for holidays to look drastically different, start. I kind of want to call Hy-Vee, which is like a major grocery chain in our area, and be like, stop promoting family dinners. This is a part of the problem. Like, you're still promoting it as if it's normal, which makes people think they can have their normal family traditions. And they probably can't, and they probably shouldn't. Sorry. I know that this year has already sucked so much that we want to just get it over with, right? And put up the decorations and drop the ball and start all over again. But this is the year that we're in. This is the reality that we're in. And I can tell you firsthand from having COVID, from not really... I wear masks, I would say. Compared to my husband, I'm much more proactive with mask wearing. I wear one in public all of the time, and I work from home, so I don't know, but then I think about, my kids are going to school every day, wearing masks as much as they can, and the fact that their teachers keep getting it, but not very many of them are getting it, tells me that maybe that's why all these parents are getting it. Maybe kids are just carrying it home, and so schools don't feel that bad because they're like, well, our kids aren't getting it, they're good. But are the kids getting it, not knowing, and bringing it home to parents? Is that possible? Is that a scenario that's happening? Definitely could be. I don't know. There are a lot of thoughts that I have that I'm going to discontinue having because it doesn't really affect anything. I just know that our family, the 4 of us, have to start making decisions for us, so that none of them get this sickness, for goodness sakes. Or maybe they already had it, but we could get it again. And I refuse to get this again. I'm just saying. So anyways, that's madness. Here we are, still here. Just crazier things are on the horizon for all of us, I think. Definitely in my state. And I hope, I don't know, maybe we start hearing something from just like anyone of like what we're supposed to do, what we're going to do. Schools certainly are not shutting down. But I hear of a new person every day that's gotten COVID. So I'm just saying, like, how are we all supposed to be home from work for 2 weeks, but still keep hospitals open and still keep daycares open and schools open and businesses open? Like, how does that happen? Yeah, I don't think that anyone has the answer, right? So, anywho, no big deal. My great thing from yesterday probably was like, I actually sat up yesterday and read emails. I had like kept all my emails kind of unread because I mentally had no capacity to read and be able to A, respond, or B, do anything with the information. So like I couldn't even sit up and write something down. Right? That's crazy. And yesterday I had a very small window where I felt good enough to like actually be able to respond, actually be able to write things down, and maybe put a plan together for my life, for rebuilding my life from here. So that felt amazing. It still required napping and recovery from all things from the podcast. That was a 2-hour nap. And then just a couple other naps, but not big windows. And so that feels amazing. But yeah, being able to sit up, I realized that I did miss a lot of things this past week, and it wasn't out of like, oh, I'm just not I just couldn't even react or understand what was being asked of me for the last week plus. I mean, I've never felt like this where it was just like, oh no, I can't. So yesterday I had a little window of energy, a little window of non-fogginess. And that's how I explain. I didn't realize that this was a symptom, and I'm not sure that it is, but just general fogginess, like the inability to use your brain to the full capacity. I'm not sure if that's partially COVID, or is that partially just being dehydrated? I don't know exactly what it is, but wow, the brain fog probably is the worst. And I think it was just pure exhaustion. Like my mind couldn't even work extra if it wanted to. I read a couple of emails and I couldn't even process the words that I was reading. So I stopped reading emails. Now I started again. I got a little energy this morning before I came on and did this podcast where I felt like I could respond and write things down and get a little bit of work done, but I can already feel how taxing that was on my body. As I was walking up the steps, I was starting to get dizzy, and I was starting to feel exhausted, like my body just felt wore out, and starting to cough a little bit. So yeah, it's really touch and go, and I kind of expected it to just be like anything else where you just chill, rest, drink your fluids, and you're back. And I haven't seen that yet. I feel a little bit better, but it comes in very, very small windows at this point. And let's see, I unknowingly had symptoms last Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday for sure knew and got tested, and have pretty much been on my back since last Wednesday. Other than this podcast and very small windows of energy. So yeah, it's crazy, right? But I really just expected to be sitting up and good to go by this point, because we're almost a week in here, peeps. Right? Like, I should have taste back. I should have smell back. I should have energy back. I shouldn't still be short of breath. This is crazy. But here we are. So I've just been feeling really grateful and great about even having a little pocket of energy and excitement in my day that I haven't had. So that's my great thing. Go ahead and take time for yourself to recognize yourself for your greatness. I'm just saying, if you don't do it, what are you even doing? Come on, party people. Let's do this. Let's plan this. Let's make this happen. Okay. So yesterday I hit very briefly on this idea that I had let old Hanna go out to pasture, which in Iowa, maybe it's a Midwest thing, maybe it's not, maybe it's a normal thing everywhere, but out to pasture, I think I'm recalling this right. Out to pasture really is like when animals, I think, used to get sick and they used to take them out to pasture and then they would just kind of put them out of their misery, right? So I had kind of let old Hanna go out to pasture and I'm like, okay, we need to completely reinvent this person. We can't even use anything. There's no scraps that are any good from this old person. Like, girl, reinvent yourself. This is the time. You asked for this type of thing. You go ahead. You reinvent yourself. You work it, girl. There's a whole new person that needs to come out of this. And I think I hadn't really embraced or realized that there are so many amazing things about the person that I used to be that I just willingly threw away because that's really what I thought had to happen. This new person has to exist in this new realm completely, and she can't really find space where she's accepted outside of a complete regeneration, right? And I don't know. I think now having some time to just think, it's kind of like I was even throwing away the good stuff. And there's so much good in the person that I was. And that person wasn't even really wrong, right? She was just in the wrong environment, maybe. She was just doing the wrong work because I'm like, here I am sitting here thinking about going to school and I'm like, oh no, you're Hanna. Remember school? Do you remember that? Like you got through it. You were okay at it, but like you were no school master, right? Are you sure? Are you really sure? Are you 100% sure? Hanna, right? And so for me, it's kind of just remembering that we aren't always in the right spot. That doesn't mean we're the wrong person. That just means we went down maybe the wrong path, which it's still the right path, right? All of the things that led me to this place had to happen in order for me to go on this new adventure, right? And I don't know. I think I got it wrong in just thinking that I had to completely be a different person. Like there was a while where I'm like, no, I'm just hippy dippy. Yay. Oh, which is perfectly fine. Like that's such a beautiful movement for people. But I think in me wanting to develop a whole new person, it felt like I had to go to that drasticness. It felt like I couldn't even touch pieces of who I used to be because that would be dangerous, right? Like that might take us back down that road that we don't want to go down, Hanna, remember? Right? And so I think that's kind of the beauty of it. You know, maybe the strength isn't in letting go. Maybe the strength is in finding ways to rebuild knowing that you're headed down a different path, knowing that you have everything that you need, right, to do that, to be successful at whatever that is. And all of those things will help you. All of those past versions of yourself are worth bringing into the conversation because, hey, there's experience there. We don't want to throw that away. We don't want to act like she isn't important here. Act like the ridiculous amount of ability to handle multiple situations. Act like we shouldn't be that person anymore. There's a reason that happened too. And so now that I am on this new idea of going back to school, I think my biggest comment to myself is maybe you just weren't studying something that lit you up, right? And we know that. We've seen proof of that, where it's like, this compared to what I used to do lights me up end over end, no question. I could wake up at 3 a.m. and do it every morning. I could have 0 audience. I could have 1 million audience. Like, I would still show up and do this work every day. I can't find a way to live without it anymore. And so that, right? So that idea that you found something that lit you up to that point, like, what if everything that you do follows that similar light path, right? And so how do I know? How do I know if I don't try? How do I know if I don't attempt it? Because at the end of the day, right, I know that I find this interesting. I know that energy repeats itself. And so if I'm doing work that aligns with that, it will probably have, my body will probably have a similar response to that work. That would be my guess. Just saying. So for right now, it's like, let's figure out how to rebuild this person, as we have completely broken her down, removed her from all of her comfort zones, removed her from all of her known identities in order to really just silence outside noise, right? And see exactly where I wanted to fall, and just ask myself where I wanted to sit, where I wanted to insert my foot, where I wanted to exist, right? And so there we are. And now looking at this person who's like ready to go back in the world, so long as COVID stops exhausting me. But once we're through that, which I'm hoping, like, there's an end date, right? For goodness sakes. Once we get through that, it's kind of like, okay, this new person doesn't have to be all new and fresh and not know how to interact with the world this way. This new person is like a contemplation, of of old beautiful Hanna, beautiful things that we didn't have to let go of to get to this place, and new beautiful Hanna that feels aligned, that feels energy, that feels love for the work that she does. This person, the new knowing of what I know myself to be, and the old knowing of the good things that we can bring along, like, we don't have to just throw her away. We don't. She does not have to be thrown out. There is good in that person, right? And so I had been throwing old Hanna out. And I'm now, hopefully the rest of this week, going to look at what is salvageable, what deserves to come over, right? What can serve us and not hurt us in this space. And just because we got to that place where we felt burnout, where we felt exhausted, doesn't mean that those skills will lead us to that exact same place, right? And so we don't just have to get rid of them. We can still find good in some of those things. Now, there definitely were some things that were not serving me, like snarkiness, like hate, right? And that's just so crazy and so hard for me to grasp because I was the funny person. I wasn't hateful. I was always happy. Quotations. I was always like quick with a joke. I was always, witty and provided commentary, but like all of those things really stemmed from hate, mostly self-hate, but then also this other wing of person who really just wanted to tear everybody else down. Even though it was funny, like everybody always laughed, right? But my main goal was to just rip people down because I had been ripped down, because there wasn't any possibility in my life. But it was certainly funny. Right? And so that's how I covered it up. Like, no, I'm funny. Like, I'm just quick-witted. I'm always laughing. I'm always happy. You believe that I'm happy, right? And so it was just a constant mask, right? And so those are things that I don't need to bring back. But there are good things that need to come back, like my ability to handle multiple schedules, my ability to plan and strategize and build. These are not things that served me poorly. These are things that were being applied to things that I wasn't passionate about, which then created this sort of hate, shame spiral that existed. And so that's like one of the things that I can hold on to, that I can bring with. I don't just have to get rid of her completely. And there are definitely other things that I just need to sift through and find. But I think to me, it was like, nope, we need to completely recreate this being. She needs to be a different person. She needs to come here in a completely different light. And I don't think so. I think we need to rebuild Hanna with all the parts that are worth salvaging, right? And look at this new person. And maybe some of the discomfort came from me trying to cover up those old pieces of who I didn't want to show up in this world as, but as like, those are necessary pieces, right? And now I have to figure out how to navigate this world in this new light with this new person who doesn't use those tactics. Find new people who also work in the world in this way, where it's not decisive and demeaning and cutthroat and killer and based on like building your own mountain in order to tear everybody else's down. And that's a challenge too, right? Because the world doesn't always exist in that way. You can't forever avoid people who do exist like that. But for me, it's about finding new ways to protect myself from those instances, and not even protect myself in avoiding those instances, really protecting my own energy. And I'm currently reading and studying more on how to do that, so that I'm not so susceptible, so that it's not so energy draining for me, right? Because that's very important as I continue to work in the world and allow more of my emotional self lead the way. Did I just say that out loud? Right? That seems so scary because we're told for such a long time, for a majority of our lives. And men definitely have it worse than women do, I believe. But for the vast majority of our lives, we're told, like, don't be emotional. I know I've been told that in different reviews, in different team meetings, like, Hanna, cover that up. Don't be so dramatic. Why are you so dramatic? Cool it down. Like, I'm not. I am very passionate about a lot of things. I definitely take it to the ends of the earth when I'm excited about it. Yes. Like, it could be as simple as a different hairbrush that I started using. But that's who I am. And that's not a bad thing. That's a different way to exist in the world for sure. But I would rather be the passionate person that I've always known myself to be than be the person that I was showing up as. Like, I don't know. When people would comment on me playing volleyball, it generally wasn't that I was so good at volleyball. It generally was that I was so into it and that I was so passionate about it, and they could just tell that, right? I was never actually probably all that good. I just loved it. Loved it. Got excited about it every time. Didn't matter. Win, lose, draw, like, I couldn't help it. And I want that. I want that back, right? And for me, it was like, well, you can't get that back. That was athletics. That's a completely different realm. And I don't find that to be true. I think I can get that back. I have to figure out what does that for me. What was exciting about that? What matches that feeling? What kind of remedies up that same passion? And definitely this speaking does that. Speaking publicly definitely does that for me. And now it's about finding more of those opportunities, finding more of those ways to exist in the world in that way, rediscover that passion set, and then start applying myself more to those things. But not just letting go of what was, right? Holding on to the good things. There are amazing things there too. Amazing things that built me to this place, and I don't have to recreate the wheel. Old Hanna has so much value to bring here, and I really thought she just needed to be thrown out completely, washed away, and she doesn't. There are a few things that do, but the majority of her needs to come with us here into where we are. So now I got to catch her back up. Like, sis, we're pulling you out of the garbage. You're coming in. We're taking you off the bench. Like, come in here. Let's figure out how to bring you up to speed with where we are right now and how we venture forward together to this new place, back into the world, because we've been sitting out for a little bit. Yeah. So, between naps, between coughing, between energy bursts, I am mentally doing that work and figuring out how to piece this person back together. Because a lot of what we just experienced was really traumatic, and not compared to other people's traumas, but like, losing your identity is a huge trauma. And so rebuilding from there has been exhausting work. As always, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful. What are you going to do? Change the world.